Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township, you know, those government entities that make laws, regulations, and ordinances that affect you out there.
Well said. And whether you live in the township of Oxford, the township of Addison, or village of Oxford, or the village of Leonard, these are the people that you elected, and the commissions and the committees that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you attended that meeting that directly affected you or not.
Eventually it will if you're not careful.
And that's why we're here.
And we're also there to dig out, search for humor.
Humor.
And occasionally, one of us, we spread rumors.
Or half-truths.
Not saying which one, but I'm pretty sure. Anyway, let's talk about a couple of meetings, shall we?
Okay.
We'll get going with this show.
What you got?
Well, we got a couple of them we're going to talk about, and it's Oxford Township Zoning Board
ZBA.
of Appeals.
Ah.
Yep. Now, we don't talk about them very often, but a pretty good group of guys, and it's the organization, of course, that sets, actually variances to laws or regulations out there. And the only body that's a legal body that can do that.
When they get kicked up from the
township.
Planning Commission.
Sometimes they do, yeah. But these guys have a wealth of information, of course, and knowledge they need to have, and not only about ordinances, but of course about legalities and what they can and can't do. Right?
And if there's a question, it doesn't get much further than them.
Normally that's the case, although it can. If somebody disagrees with the decision of the appeals, excuse me, they can
Appeal the appeal.
They can appeal the appeal, and sometimes people will. They'll take it to circuit court and then let a judge rule. But a lot of times,
And if that doesn't work, they'll take it to the Court of Appeals.
right? But sometimes people will take a shortcut and they say, "Well, we're because it was turned down in the Planning Commission, we're not going to take it to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We're going to take it directly to circuit court." Guess what? Circuit court judge, they'll ship it right down back because you got to go through the process.
They're like watching a tennis game.
It is. So you got to be pretty well assured, that you're going to have an opportunity or a chance to win this thing. Otherwise, you can put a lot of money into this in terms of attorney's fees and so forth.
Well,
or
I
you can
think-
just make it simple.
Yeah. What is the entry fee now for the Planning Commission? What, $500?
For the Planning Commission,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any fee for that, but there is for building, permits and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't believe the Planning Commission charges anything.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm pretty sure. If not, you want to spread the rumor?
Sure. Take a note.
Well, the second meeting we're going to talk about is the Oxford Township Planning Commission meeting. Township, so they kind of run hand in hand. But let's go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals because it was a rather short meeting compared to the Planning Commission meeting, shall we?
Oh, okay.
All right.
You knew it was going there.
I knew it was, yes. Okay, the chairman, of course, is Jim Butler.
Okay.
Now, you don't hear a lot about these people that serve on this board. There are a few others that are well known.
I understand you were searching madly for who was in charge of this thing.
I was, and I think you went to your little computer and, no, it wasn't you, it was Bill Service that came up with the answer on that one.
That's right.
Because you don't hear that name very often out there, and the Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't come up that often.
Right. They lay low.
Normally because the Planning Commission are so stringent, and so particular and precise, with what they're asking.
Not much gets out of there.
No, what the candidate should do, that they're well informed.
Right.
And so normally they don't go, to
And
this degree.
quite frankly, zoning board of appeals meetings are canceled more often than not because there's nothing for them to appeal.
Well, in the township, it's more frequent than it is in the village.
Right.
But in essence, you're kind of right.
Kinda.
Well, just spread that rumor. Okay, we can do that. They went through the minutes, of course, and then they said, is there anybody in the public that would like to speak for non-items on the agenda? Everybody looked at their shoes.
Oh,
Nobody
one of
wanted to say
those.
anything, right? One of those. And so then Mr. Butler said, Chairman Butler said, we would like to nominate and elect officers because it's that time of the year again. They said, hey, it's time here already? Yeah, it is.
So is it new or same old, same old?
Same old, pretty much. They said, hey, he's doing a good job. Hey, that person's doing a good job.
I don't want it.
The secretary, Callie, you're doing a good job. All those in favor? So anyway, that
Everybody
wrapped
else
up
went,
quick. Yeah, they went, well, that was a close call. So anyway, the first subject that came up, they wanted to talk about the 700 Maloney Avenue. And John Abrahamson is the...
Maloney Avenue or street?
Maloney Avenue.
Okay.
Yep. 700 Maloney Avenue.
That's off of Drainer Road.
Yeah, it is. And John Aberhanson is making a request for it so that he can build an addition on the back of a garage, behind a garage.
Okay.
And in order to do that, it's an R1 zoning area, which is single home residence. And the requirement, of course, for that is roughly 10 feet. But now that's an old area.
When you say 10 feet, you mean clearance from
Well, on the side.
the lot side.
Yeah,
right.
the lot side would be 10 feet on each side.
Okay.
And the ordinance is, and the frontage is 25 feet requirement and
Okay.
20 feet in the back. Well, they're a little short on the side here because the area that this home is built, the existing home, actually was done a long time ago. And I don't know if you would call that a...
Grandfather?
Grandfather. I don't believe the grandfather holds up anymore. I think it was tested. And I don't believe in the state of Michigan or federally, it's really anything that's acceptable any longer. But at one time it was. But
I think a lot of Indians on reservations would have something to say about it.
they would. But what are you going to do? Are you going to move the house because, it doesn't meet conformity? You know that word. And so this would be non-conforming. And the request would also shorten it even more to 3.2 feet rather than the existing 6 feet that he has now, rather than 10 feet.
3.2?
Did I confuse you completely?
Where'd they come
hope
up with
so.
0.2?
Well, that's what they need in order to make this
Or they make
change
it,
or addition.
or is that their equivalent of a metric meter?
Look it up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, make a note. Okay, so anyway, so they're requesting, they currently have 6.5 or 6.5 feet of clearance, on the side of on the property where the building's at, and they're saying that with this addition or change, they will require 3.2 feet. So they're going to restrict it even further between buildings. So,
Okay.
but as Callie pointed out, sits on the board, she says, this is from years back, and I mean, they built these houses practically on top of each other, and they weren't as tight in terms of controls and ordinances as they are now, and restrictions.
I think the requirement back then was, could you roll a tennis ball between the houses?
Yeah, right. Or could you get your buggy and horse between, maybe not, a skinny horse, skinny buggy, maybe, I don't know, bicycle, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, that's the way it is, and so they're trying to work with what they've been given over the years.
Right.
And
that's hard because, some, in a lot of cases, their ordinances were written 100 years ago.
Yeah, they were. Matter of fact, we were just looking at some old ordinances, let's say over in Addison Township. And we talked about,
The new master plan?
about the chickens and on what acre of land. And no rooster, but you can have a chicken.
Oh, yeah, and when you're transitioning from farmland to residential, that presents a lot of problems.
Oh, sure. Yep. But getting back to this one, motion was made by Callie Rossner that they go ahead and approve the 3.2 feet. And so that went through without a hitch based on the circumstances that they had. She did want to mention also, Callie brought up that the Planning Commission, which she serves on that board as well, that the ZBA board is going to be adjusted to 5-member board is a recommendation.
How many is on it right now?
I believe there's 7
Oh, really?
on that board. The capability of doing 7, but that's in the what do they call it, bylaws.
Okay.
But they want to make sure that there's 5. I believe that's going to be in the
As
future.
long as it's an
So,
odd number.
Yeah, as long as it's an odd number. But anyway, that being said, we did talk about the Oxford Zoning Board of Appeals, and that was it with the Zoning Board of Appeals. We'll tell you more when we come back right after this.
With St. Patrick's Day right around the corner, please remember to drink responsibly and stay safe. From your friends at Oxford Community Television.
Welcome back. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we just got through talking about the Oxford Township Zoning Board of Appeals. It was a rather short meeting. The next one, not so short. And we're going to talk about the Oxford Township Planning Commission meeting. And that's headed by the first person we talked about before, Todd Bell.
Right.
And we've said that Todd Bell does a great job of conducting a meeting.
He runs a tight meeting.
Yes. He has Tom Berger on that particular board, as well as Jack Curtis, who also, is outstanding. He knows his stuff. There's Ed Hunwick, who also serves on the Communications Commission.
Yeah, who's the planner for that?
For what?
The Planning Commission.
For the planner. Oh, the
Isn't there
planner
a
is
planner?
Carlisle Wortman.
Okay.
Yep. And that would be Brian that works for that company.
Okay.
There's also Callie Rossner and Mike Spiz, who's also with the Oakland County
Right.
board and sits on this one, which
the
is
commission.
good because commission. Yeah, you're right. He's the commissioner for the Oakland County. Does a great job out there, by the way. And one of the things he wants to do is keep his hand on what's going on, in your community, and that's why he's serving on this board. And then there's Mike Young. So that pretty much concludes that board. They did a respect to the flag, good thing. And then Kelly Rossner, she brought up at the beginning of the meeting that she thought that the meetings need to be more detailed, in terms of the minutes. And she questioned that. And Brian with Carlisle Wortman said, well, it really is determined how the minutes are going to be set up by the township clerk, who would be Curtis Wright.
Right.
And according to them, that this is the way, the past that Curtis has wanted those minutes.
Well, sometimes communities want more verbose minutes, and others trim it right down to the bare necessities. Motion made, vote taken, next.
Yes. Yeah. Now the thing, after they had quite a discussion on this, the one thing that did come forward is why can't we suggest, to the trustees that they provide, additional information, in order to make clarification for the future. Because as Callie pointed out, Christian Mills project, the reason why she didn't want to approve it was because there was no site plan provided for what he wanted to do. And again, it came back in conversation that it wasn't really necessary for what he was asking to do in terms of rezoning. But she said it would be nice to know down the line, if you're looking at historical documents, that the reason why it was declined at that time, the first time through, was because there wasn't sufficient information due to lack of site plan.
Maybe what they need is an evaluation form, like they can attach to the minutes.
Like Callie pointed out, all they have to do is just mention that within the minutes, and it's done. But so they all agreed that they would make a recommendation, to clerk Wright, that this be a consideration, and knowing the clerk, if it's something that'll help the township, he's willing to do almost anything to make it work. So that issue was covered. Comments from the audience concerning unrelated agenda items.
More shoes?
More shoes. This time they were shinier, though,
I see.
than the last meeting. I don't know why that is. Oh, they're probably because they were wearing work boots and things like that.
Oh, well then.
Okay. So anyway, actually Curtis Wright, or not Curtis Wright, but Jack Curtis, I get those two mixed up occasionally. Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're both good-looking guys. Which one do you pick? I don't know. Let's go with Jack Curtis this time.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Good old Jack.
Yeah, Jack raised his hand. He said, well, there are a couple of things. He said, I was going to let that slide in terms of comments, but he said Oakland County is having their tree sale.
A tree sale?
Yeah, tree sale in April.
What's the purpose of the tree sale?
Well, people that want to plant berm line, something along like, they can get these trees. They're little fellers, about this high, little guys, and they get to be big guys after a period of time.
What kind of trees are they?
They're fairly inexpensive. You can get spruce trees, I think. Different types of evergreens.
Basic evergreens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Evergreens. There might be others there too. I don't know.
Fir, balsam,
Yeah.
spruce,
Could be those.
pine.
Yeah, porcupine. I mean, no, that's not pine. It's pine, isn't it? Porcupine. Yeah. Anyway, it would be Oakland County, and you have until April 8th, which is the deadline, if you decide you want some of these trees from the conservation.
But not deciduous trees.
Probably not.
Okay.
Okay. Would you explain that, please?
Leave it alone.
All right. And then he said that Parks and Recreation, they need people that are volunteers. He says for the Seymour Lake Festival coming up. So you folks out there, if you'd like to pitch in and help, get a hold of Ron Davis, the Director of Parks and Recreation for the township. And he's looking for your help.
Be more than glad to accept your help.
You think? Okay. You can almost see him on his hands and knees going like this. But anyway, he could use the help. It's a big operation that they do every summer.
Yep. Carnival, fireworks,
Everything you could think of.
garage
And they
sales.
have these cute little carts you get to drive around. Did you ever notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that would be the Seymour Lake
Never did get
festival.
the turbocharger for one of those, but
Yeah, you could really make them go. New business. They said, well, there's a preliminary site plan coming up for Savannah Ridge Estates. Now, I don't know if you remember this one. We did talk about it to some degree. It's a 42 acres of land, 42.11. And originally, it was put forward.
where is it?
Funny you should ask. It is located east of Baldwin, west of Coates Road. Okay, got that? Okay, and we did talk about this before. And
It's east of, well, okay.
Yeah, the citizenship or the residents were all up in arms over this originally because it was originally a PUD,
Planned unit development?
Plan Unit Development, which is negotiating the terms of what's going to happen with the property, and it was 42.11 acres. And after all was said and done, and as you put it, gores and pitchforks and fire, after all that happened,
Oh, those are
it was
exciting.
turned down.
Those are exciting meetings.
So now that the company has come forward again, and the company is Clearview Builders, and they've come forward again. This time they're going to stick within the requirements of the ordinances, for that area, and the building codes and so forth. So, and they did. It's single family R3 zoning district, and they originally they said that they had difficulty, of course, with the PUDs, so they want to make sure that Carlisle Wortman, the planner, was okay with what they were going to do. So they did talk about the road that they're going to put through there, and one of the problems they had was originally it was going to be a 20-foot road, and that was unacceptable to the fire department. So 25 foot is what's required.
Okay.
And he said that's no longer an issue. He provided
Good.
a site plan of where the buildings would be. The lots would be 1 acre lots, which is in accordance with the ordinances and the requirement of the township, with 150 foot of frontage on each one. So he said he's pretty much done everything that the laws require in the township to build this subdivision.
And was that it? Or are you going to
No.
say, but wait, there's more?
Yeah, there is more. Mike Spiz spoke up and he said he wanted to know if there was any conflict, between the planner, which is Carlisle Wortman, and the engineer. And they said no, there weren't any. That the engineer agreed, Sharp Engineering, which is Jim Sharp. He said everything is up to par. He said I need to discuss a couple things concerning septic tank and water. And with that, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we come back.
I love septic tanks.
We're going to talk trash. Trash it is.
Welcome to Leonard.
Hi, I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Terry Stiles. Did you know that Charter Channel 191 and AT&T Channel 99 are the only television stations you can find all the events and news just for you?
Oxford News This Week is your news closer to home. Catch us right here weekdays at noon, 6:30, and 11 p.m., and weekends at noon and 11 p.m.
See you there.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Oxford Township Planning Commission meeting that they had. And we're just discussing Jim Sharp and the project that is involving the subdivision. 42.11 acres.
Keep shrinking
I
this
keep
thing.
shrinking it. By the time I get this done, I have to
Be
put
two
high-rises.
houses.
I have to do a high rise there because they'll never fit the number of homes that they want to put in that spot if I keep this up, will they? East of Baldwin Road and west of Coates Road. But anyway, Jim Sharp, the engineer, he said well and septic tank, they are going to have each one its own well and its own septic field, and on each lot. And each of the properties will have to be bonded, make sure that, it's done properly.
Is that on the, what road is it actually on?
Well, it's off Baldwin, actually,
Okay.
and you'll drive back. And there's a subdivision, Clearwater, or Clear Lakes, I think, or,
Okay.
the subdivision is near there, I think. That's the name. If it's not, we'll call it that.
Well, Clear Lake
Okay.
is off a drainer.
Yeah, I could be lying.
You are.
Well, stretch the truth just a little, not a lie. I mean, we don't do that. Well, you might, but okay. So anyway, they said as far as the wells and the septic field, that's all under the control of Oakland County and the health department. And so those specifications, of course, the property owner or the developer said that's not a problem. We know
Each
what
house
the
will have its own
regulations are.
septic field.
Each one will.
Okay.
So then they said, well, the storm drain is the other concern, because you got to have drainage, and it's going to go into the Paint Creek drain, which isn't too far from there. So there actually was a homeowner that stood up and she said that she was concerned about that there not be any salt or anything eroding, into that creek. And they said that they've taken precautionary measures so that won't happen, and the detailed information would be provided. So that wasn't an issue either. So I think it was Mr. Commissioner Spiz who said, are you going to do a perk test, on this? And he said, it isn't really necessary, although we have done that. He said, and there's different areas where the perk looks really good, and there's certain areas where it's not as good as one that looks really good.
But does it meet minimum requirements?
It does meet requirements.
Okay.
So he said that would not be an issue as well. Excuse me. Any soil borings was the next question. And he said, yes, he's taken soil borings all over the place.
What's that for?
It's also to check the content of the soil for drainage and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So
I thought
That
the
sound
perk
good?
test did that.
it does part of that, I think.
Oh,
Also determines if there's any contaminants or, in the soil.
oh, that's true.
That kind of stuff. So anyway.
How
you
far
being
down does this soil boring go?
About 300 miles.
Oh, okay.
Close enough, right? Okay. Take a note. I
Boy,
have no
they
idea.
really got stringent around here.
They did, yes. But I'll tell you what, those folks over there in Oxford Township, they're tough.
Well, the house is $300,000, but it's $600,000 for the boring.
Could be. And all the mosquitoes you can handle. I don't know. Anyway, not the case. So anyway, Kelly Rossner was concerned about runoff and that kind of thing too, for oils and so forth and spills. So that was all addressed. Doesn't seem to be an issue. The health department will address that issue again over a period of time. Fire department, we need fire hydrants. Guy says, okay, we'll put them in. And Chief Show says, well, they have to be.
You got fire hydrants and storm sewers
Yeah.
and no sewage.
Well, yeah, septic fields.
Well, yeah, but it
But-
seems like you got all these utilities, but why don't you have the other one?
I don't know. But anyway, Pete Schultz, the fire chief, he says, you have to have those fire hydrants capable of handling 500 feet per minute, cubic feet of water per minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kelly says, is that going to be able to accommodate with all the homes on water systems and plus the subdivision next to it? And they said, you want 500? We'll give you 500. So I figure they're going to
Just
put
don't turn your
pretty big
faucets on or
pumps.
flush your toilets all at the same time.
They're going to have a pump the size of this building by the time they're done, probably. But anyway, they're going to take care of it. So anyway, the chief was satisfied with that. And again, the public stood up. It was Vicky Kahn, and she was concerned about the pollution, that kind of thing, in the Paint Creek, and that was covered. And also one other concern she had. She said there's a 200-year-old oak tree on the property, and what's going to happen to that? Well, Todd Bell says, under the ordinance, not the PUD, it could have been negotiated that that tree will stay there, but under the ordinance and the way this builder or contractor is handling this, he can do anything he wants with that tree, pretty much on the property. It's his. So the builder or the contractor, he stood up and he said, we're going to save that tree.
We're going to build a house around
We'll build a
it.
house around the tree. He said there were certain trees that probably wouldn't make it, but he said that tree is one that's going to stay. And so he had one happy resident there. Tree's
Well, they
going to
should
remain.
really test to see if that tree is punky.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because those oak trees, when they get punky, they fall over.
Oh, well, hopefully this one won't fall over. I guess it looks pretty healthy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so a motion was made by Jack Curtis. He recommended the final site plan approval. Now, you do know, even though the planning commission approves it, it now has to go to the trustees, They have to make the final approval. It's kind of like the village council. Planning commission makes a
Right.
recommendation, it goes to the council. You know how that works, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. So this isn't the last step for them, but it's close to the last step. Then the other one they had was an applicant from Robertson Brothers Company, and they live off Telegraph Road in Bloomfield Hills. And the property is owned by Oxford Association Tinkin Court, Rochester, Michigan. It's owned by those people.
And where is it?
I have no idea. But the Oxford Association is off Indianwood. Remember we talked about that one before?
The Oxford Association.
Where it's actually, the way it's set up right now is zoned for not apartments, but condominiums. But they're going to build single-family homes in there, I believe. And they want a separate association.
Well, this is in Oxford Township.
This is in Oxford Township. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's 2.27 acres in there, approximately, of vacant land that they're going to be working on. And it's going to be called Hills of Oxford, South.
South. There's a north?
Apparently there must be. But anyway, they have a total of 52 units that they're putting in, and this is the last final 9 units that they're talking about in terms of this proposal.
Okay.
Excuse me. So if I haven't told you, confused you folks completely, I'm working on it. Okay. Excuse me. And it's just off Paradise Trail. If you don't know where that's at, neither do I. Take a note.
We should have a laptop here. Google.
Yeah, right.
Google.
You should find that.
What have you got?
That's what they do. You could bring your laptop along. We could do that, couldn't we?
Sure.
Yeah, that would work.
It's right here, folks.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Okay. Excuse me. So the planners, Carlisle Wortman, and Brian being there, he said everything was up to date in terms of what these people want to do. Their site plan looks like it's correct, other than the safety trail, wasn't on there, but they would include that. And so they asked the engineer, Sharp, if everything is kosher with them. And Jim Sharp says, yeah, everything is pretty much in line with me too. He says, there's a few conditions that we need to meet here, but that's contingent on what the Oakland County provides as well. So they said, well, then let's go ahead and go forward with this. And they did approve it, but with the township, but with those conditions that Jack Curtis talked about. So it looks like they're going to have that subdivision move forward, and it's going to go to the Board of Trustees for their final decision.
He said, flipping back to his first page.
Yes. And what do we have coming up?
Well, we do have meetings. On March 8th at 7 o'clock, the Addison Township Fire Board is meeting. And at 6:30 that same day, the Village of Oxford Council. And on that same day, the Addison Township Planning Commission is canceled. And on 3/9, at 7 o'clock, the Oxford Township Board of Trustees. And at 6:30, the Oxford Board of Education will be meeting at the board offices in downtown Oxford. On 3/10 at 7 o'clock, the Oxford Township Planning Commission will be meeting. And the Addison Township Zoning Board of Appeals was canceled for that same day. On 3/14 at 7 o'clock, the Oxford Township Zoning Board of Appeals. And at 7 o'clock on the 14th, the Village of Leonard Council.
Well, it looks like we've got a lot of things coming up.
A lot of things.
Well, excuse me, my voice is giving out, so it must be time to leave. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
We'll catch you right here on Minutes by Minutes.
See you then.